Fourthly, should wicked rulers fear God's preachers? Or should they be like comfortable? Sit down, coffee, donuts, discuss the Phillies. Get a good look at his face. That's Paul Schneider. He was one who stood. He wasn't the only one, but he was one of the first ones. Paul Schneider is, I think, the real hero in the whole World War II thing. How many of you know the name Dietrich Bonhoeffer? Yeah, most of you have heard Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He's the one that we hear from the most. He wrote more, he was more visible, and he had a lot of courage. I think Paul Schneider actually saw the whole mess coming even before Dietrich Bonhoeffer did. I believe that he did. He's a hero of mine, Paul Schneider is. Who was he? Well, born in 1897, died in 1939. His first conflict in 1933 versus Ernst Röhm and his consistory, his own. See, what happened was, Ernst Röhm, does that name mean anything to anybody? Röhm? Yeah. He was a straight thug, is what he was. He didn't even pretend like Albert Rosenberg and some of these other guys to be some high and mighty German folk, blood, fatherland connection type thing. He didn't even pretend. He was just a revolutionary with a gun and a knife, and he killed people. That's what he did. He's the first guy, he's the first one that Pastor Paul Schneider ran up against. And he had to defend himself against a particular charge, Pastor Paul Schneider did. I won't ask you to guess what the charge is because it'd be too tough, but you'll get it once I say the word. He called Pastor Paul Schneider a bigot. Ring any bells? I mean, you gotta really think about that. These Nazis who couldn't kill enough Jews, Slavs, Gypsies, some Eastern Europeans, and anyone with dark, they couldn't kill enough of them, but they got away with calling this godly pastor a bigot. Can you imagine? That's his first conflict. His consistory got involved. Pastor Schneider's upline, if you will, in his Lutheran church. Things are getting a little bit tough. This is back in 1933, by the way. This is early on. This is when most people still think Hitler's the greatest thing since sliced bread or German beer. His consistory, what do you think happens when the consistory gets involved?
Throw him under the bus?
You know what they did? They forced the pastor to issue a retraction. So they did. See, Pastor Schneider was a very courageous man. He didn't only preach this stuff when he had to say it. He didn't do it every Sunday, but he felt that Rome was a threat to his congregation and the Church of Jesus Christ, and as a pastor he had to do something about it. He wouldn't stand around. Not only did he say it in his church, he put it in writing. He probably could have got away with it if he just would have said it, but he had to make a permanent record. So that's his first conflict. His second conflict, he ran with local party leadership. He said some things from his pulpit. He basically said, National Socialism is incompatible with the gospel of Jesus Christ. We cannot marry the two. That was blasphemy, right? Good old-fashioned blasphemy. And so now he's being watched by the local party's leadership. This, you have to hear. His third conflict versus the local party official. This is his name. Nodding. Oh, my German here. Listen to what happened. Pastor Paul Schneider is standing in for another pastor who's on vacation. There is a funeral, and Pastor Schneider has to officiate. This young man who died was a member of the Hitler Brown shirts, and there were party officials standing around, some in uniform. A little bit intimidating situation. Listen to what happened. June 11th, 1934, they held a funeral for a member of the Hitler Youth. Standing in for the local pastor who was away on a trip, Pastor Schneider officiated. Schneider had made several pastoral visits to the young man during his illness. During the church funeral service, the district commander of the NSDAP, it's the stormtroopers, a man named Nadig, spoke. He said that the deceased would now be taken up into the Hearst Vessel Troop. How many of you have ever heard that one? The Hearst Vessel Troop. Okay, yeah, the Hearst Vessel was a German thug, supported Hitler early on, and was killed in the street fight with communists, which they had an awful lot of those things back in the late 20s, early 30s, well, all throughout. Somebody got a hold of, some writer wrote a song about Hearst Vessel, and memorialized them in this song, and the song created, if you will, a Hearst Vessel troop of Germans who had died fighting on behalf of the Nazis, and obviously all went to heaven, right? I mean, come on. If you die fighting for Hitler in the brown shirts, where else are you going to go? Right? Obvious. And so Pastor Schneider's officiating this funeral. There's all these brown shirts standing around. And this guy stands up and says this. Ooh. 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 Pastor Schneider saw himself obliged, obligated to rebut this expression. He did so with the following words. Whether there is a Hearst Vessel troop in eternity, I don't know. But the Lord God bless your exit from time and your entry into eternity. Let us now in peace go to the house of the Lord and hold a memorial for the dead before God and His holy word. Not really a stinging rebuke, kind of a mild rebuke, right? What do you think the German party guy's going to do? Oh, okay, yeah, you know what? With that, the district director stepped up again, same guy, and said, Comrade Moog, I would say you have passed, Moog is a dead young man, I say you have passed over into the Hearst Vessel troop. To this repeated performance, Pastor Schneider answered, I protest, this is a church ceremony, and as the gospel pastor, I am answerable for the pure doctrine of the Holy Scriptures. Uniformed guys standing around. I won't read it, but things got dicey after that. And Pastor Schneider got even more pointed after that and told in a letter to the district commandant, you have no business, you have no right. Can you imagine telling him that? His fourth conflict versus the party and the consistory. Yeah, see what happened here was things just got dicey. And Pastor Schneider just kept on, he wasn't looking for a fight, but as he preached, the local party, they already had their eye on him. So the consistory took him out of his two churches where he was pastor, moved him deep into the country, and things stayed quiet for a little while, but not for long. Pretty soon he ran afoul of the Nazi leadership again, as he should have, right? Yeah, as he should have. And he's got in trouble again. Well, this time, he gets taken into protective custody. This wasn't the first time. Protective custody, read prison, right? Yeah. And by this time, the consistory had had enough. And they washed their hands of their pastor. They let him alone. They wrote letters to the Nazi local party, said, hey, we're forcing him into retirement. You do with him what you will. He's standing alone. His fifth conflict in 1938 was against what he called that criminal symbol. What happened was he had to line up the other prisoners. They didn't do this often, but this is the first time he had done it. They had to stand in front of the swastika as a flag, and they had to remove their hats as the flag was raised. Brings tears to my eyes. What do you think this courageous pastor did? He wouldn't take his hat off. And his friends around him were hissing at him, you know, what are you doing? Like he forgot. You know, like, hey, okay, just have to take your hat off. Take your hat off, come on, what are you doing? And he said through clenched teeth, I will not remove my hat before that criminal symbol. Who was this man that had figured this out while 3/4 of the German church was still chasing after that cutthroat Hitler? How did he get it?